fact of life that people make mistakes, even me, and I'm awesome. However, whenever we are facing a big screw up or dealing with the repercussions of another's error, it is easy to forget that mistakes are a part of life. Fortunately, for most people, our greatest mistakes on the job are minuscule compared to some of the biggest blunders in the business history. So here are the 10 worst business blunders of all time. Number 10. The AOL-TIME Warner merger. It's hard to imagine now, but AOL was once the biggest name on the internet, the Google of its time. In the age of dial-up internet connections, AOL was the portal through which most Americans went online. With as many as 35 million subscribers at its peak in 2002, AOL was a Wall Street darling, flush with investor cash and looking for prestige purchase. AOL CEO Steve Case met Time Warner CEO Gerald Levine in 1999, and the two men immediately began daydreaming about a merger between the biggest names in the old and new media. After months of private talks, the corporate marriage was announced on January 10, 2000 to the ecstatic media coverage. At $350 billion, it was the largest merger in the history of business world. But even after gaining Federal Trade Commission approval, the deal had its skeptics. AOL was the majority shareholder, and for the financials to add up, AOL would have to continue making bundles of money in advertising revenue. Before the ink was even dry on the deal, the dot-com bubble had burst, internet stocks plummeted, and the bottom fell out of the online advertising market. Their leadership fought with one another. Within 2 years, $99 billion had been lost. To make matters worse, increased availability of high-speed internet access cut deeply into AOL's dial-up revenue. Unfortunately, by the time the companies divorced 9 years later, their collective value had shrunk from $300 billion to $40 billion. The merger proved poisonous for both companies and downright deadly for investors. In 2009, Time Warner spun AOL off its own company. Today, the AOL-Time Warner marriage is the standard business school case study for the worst merger ever. Number 9. Kodak sits on digital. For over 100 years, Kodak was synonymous with photographs. Founded in 1880, the New York-based company commanded 90% of the film market, 85% of the camera market, and it employed over 60,000 people by the late 1970s. In 1974, during Kodak's corporate dominance, one of its engineers, Steve Sasson, started fiddling with the gadget called the charge coupled device, or CCD. In time, he figured out how to use the CCD to translate light into digital language of zeros and ones. A year later, he successfully built the world's first digital camera, a clunky box that could produce a 100,000 pixel image, the equivalent of 0.01 megapixels. Kodak instantly recognized the potential of the device to revolutionize photography and invested billions in its development, and filed a patent for the digital camera in 1977. However, Kodak made so much money on film that it didn't introduce the technology at the time to the public. Kodak continued its focus on traditional film cameras, even when it was clear the market was moving to digital. Kodak's executives did not foresee the eventual decline of the film. Only when film's popularity began to wane in the mid-1990s in favor of digital photography did the company push into the digital market. But the competitors such as Fuji and Sony entered the market faster, and Kodak was never able to fully capitalize on the product it actually invented. By 2001, the company was second place to Sony in the digital camera market, but it still lost $60 on every camera sold. By 2010, it ranked 6th in the digital camera space, which itself began to dwindle with the advent of smartphones and tablets. By 2011, the stock had dropped to 65 cents per share, and the company filed for bankruptcy in December of that year. Kodak now concentrates mostly on printer cartridges and film for motion pictures. Number 8. Blockbuster rejects Netflix for $50 million. If you came of the age in the 1980s, you spent way too many Friday nights at your local Blockbuster, browsing the new release shelves or raiding the return bin for the hottest titles. At the top of its game, Blockbuster ran 9,904 stores worldwide, with revenue topping $5.9 billion a year. The secret to Blockbuster's early success was using computers to make sure that every store was stocked with the most popular movies. But once Blockbuster nailed its winning formula, it failed to adapt to the changing tastes of the American consumers. In the late 1990s, an internet upstart named Netflix began offering a DVD by mail service. The subscription service exploded in popularity, and Netflix executives flew down to Texas in 2000 to make an offer to Blockbuster CEO John Antioco. For $50 million, Netflix would join forces with Blockbuster and help it launch its own online and DVD by mail service. Antioco laughed Netflix out of the office, seeing it a niche player. As of 2017, Netflix is valued at more than $30 billion. And Blockbuster, which filed for bankruptcy in 2010, closed its last retail stores and cancelled its copycat DVD by mail service in 2013. Number 7. Western Union hangs up on the telephone. Today we know Western Union as the fastest way to send money around the world. But the company first gained its fortunes in the 19th century with its telegram service. Before telephones, a Western Union telegram transmitted by telegraphs using a Morse code was the fastest way to send a message across cities, states, and even countries. When Alexander Graham Bell patented the first telephone in 1876, he wanted to cash it on his revolutionary invention by selling it to the communications king, Western Union. Bell asked for $100,000, a fortune at the time, and the company didn't bite. Western Union executives couldn't envision a world in which people would ditch the handy telegram for expensive, grainy-sounding telephones that didn't work over long distances. When Bell's telephone caught fire with the public, Western Union hired rival inventors, including Thomas Edison, to design a better version. Bell sued Western Union for patent infringement and won, forcing the telegram giant to ditch its design on the telephone. Bell's telephone went on to rule American telecommunications for a century. Number 6. Excite passes on Google for $750,000. Physicists argue that time travel is impossible, but if you want to be transported instantly back to 1999, simply visit excite.com. This is what internet used to look like. Without an accurate search engine like Google, web portals like AOL and Excite categorized the early internet by subject and posted the daily news and weather. Incredibly, this is exactly what Excite is still doing. Imagine how different life would be for Excite and for all of us if Excite had bought Google back in 1999 for the price of $750,000. Google co-founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin first offered to sell their search technology to Excite for $1 million, but dropped the price further when Excite showed no interest. To Excite's credit, Google was just an unproven bundle of algorithms back in 1999, not the world-dominating technology goliath it is today. Excite was eventually bought up by Ask.com, which has less than 2% share of the search market, and Google now has more than 60% of the US search market and much more larger share worldwide. Number 5. Rupert Murdoch buys and nearly kills MySpace. Before Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and even YouTube, there was MySpace. MySpace was the first social network to go mainstream back in 2004, signing up 1 million users just 1 month after its launch. Everybody from rock stars to bored teenagers created MySpace profile pages and started friending each other like crazy. By 2005, MySpace was the 5th most viewed internet domain in America. And then Rupert Murdoch came along. The News Corp billionaire bought MySpace parent company in 2005 for $580 million. According to MySpace co-founder and former CEO Chris DeWolf, Murdoch squandered the social network's incredible popularity by trying to make MySpace profitable too quickly. Murdoch promised huge revenues to Wall Street and crowded the site with ads that eventually alienated users who flocked to ad-free Facebook. MySpace traffic peaked in 2008 with 75.9 million unique visitors, but the site couldn't fight the onslaught of Facebook. Murdoch sold MySpace in 2011 for a piddling $35 million and admitted via Twitter, "We screwed up in every way possible. Learned lots of valuable expensive lessons." Number 4. Edwin Drake fails to patent his oil drill. Extracting large quantities of oil from reserves was seemingly impossible task in 1858, but Drake wasn't afraid to work to make it happen. Stationed in Titusville, Pennsylvania, he spent a year looking for a solution without results. After employing a local blacksmith, he built a derrick of pine wood, surrounded the drill with a pipe to keep water out, and drilled for weeks until he finally procured the black gold. Unfortunately, Drake was later fired by his company, and he lost all his money on Wall Street. Almost immediately, other entrepreneurs began using his method to extract oil in the surrounding areas of Titusville. His failure to patent his invention resulted in loss of millions. Though the state of Pennsylvania and oil barons eventually paid him to express their gratitude. To thank him for his efforts, the state granted him stipend of $1,500, which was paid to him annually until his death in 1880. Number 3. Nokia refusing to use Android. Nokia was a pioneer in the smartphone market, literally introducing consumers to the smartphone with its initial Symbian series devices in 2002. For the next 5 years, Symbian phones had very little trouble maintaining a leadership position in the smartphone pack. But in 2007, Apple introduced its iPhone. With its full touchscreen and app-based operating system, the iPhone changed the very definition of what a smartphone should be. The software development team at Nokia realized that there was a threat, so they split into 2 teams. One team tried to revamp the Symbian, and the other team created an entirely new operating system named MeeGo. The problem was that the 2 teams were battling for resources from Nokia. As a result, there was an internal struggle within the company. It was so bad that whenever Nokia was dealing with outside stakeholders, it took almost a year to come to a decision. As the months passed, the Symbian platform aged, and the age really showed when compared to the iOS. During this time, the search engine giant Google came up with its new OS for the mobile phones named Android. And this proved to be the last nail in the coffin. Android revolutionized the mobile phone market, and Google, in association with many mobile phone manufacturers, came up with low-budget smartphones, and Nokia wasn't prepared to counter this. Nokia CEO at the time decided to skip on Android, calling it a short-term solution, saying that it was like pissing in your pants in winter to keep warm. Nokia kept on working on their own software, throwing $5 billion a year on R&D, but of no use. As time went on, the iPhone and Android handset dominated the market. After several delays, Nokia opted for Windows Mobile OS, subsequently making it their primary platform. Nokia released several Lumia smartphones until it was acquired by Microsoft, and from there on it went downhill for Nokia. However, there is a twist. Nokia is going to be returning in 2017 with an Android OS after signing an agreement with HMD Global. Number 2. Yahoo's failure to foresee the future. In 2000, Yahoo's market capitalization reached $125 billion. But over the next 16 years, it steadily tumbled, mostly due to inaction, missed opportunities, and bad decisions. The company was so close to basically owning our entire online life. In some bizarre universe, Yahoo is the search engine, photo storage, and social network you use every day. But in this very real world, it isn't much of anything. Back in 1998, two individuals, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, who were unknown to the technology company, offered to sell their little startup to Yahoo for $1 million. Yahoo rejected them because they wanted their users to spend more time on Yahoo directories, where they would be exposed to banner ads. Better search, like the kind Google was offering, would quickly route users away from Yahoo. Meanwhile, in the early 2000s, Google steadily grew. Realizing its mistake, in 2002, Yahoo's CEO at the time, Terry Semel, engaged in negotiation to acquire Google, which lasted for several months. The outcome of negotiations was Semel balking at Google's price tag of $5 billion. And the problem doesn't stop there. The signs were there in 2006 that Facebook was going to be around for a while and keep evolving. Facebook had survived despite turning down bids from the likes of Google and Viacom. When Facebook investors showed up to sell their company, Yahoo depreciated the value they offered. Founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg expected $1 billion, but Yahoo reduced it to $875 million, resulting in Mark walking out. Not long after this, in 2008, Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer tried hard to buy Yahoo, which was now in the solid second place in the search engine race. In February of that year, Yahoo's board decided that Microsoft's $44 billion offer was too low. And as we all know how it turns out for Yahoo in the coming years. Yahoo couldn't keep up with the competition and ended up selling its core assets to Verizon for a mere $4.8 billion in 2016, 10 times less than what they could have gotten from Microsoft. Number 1. Jobs strikes a deal with XEROX. XEROX founded its Palo Alto Research Center, also known as PARC, in 1970, which brought together some of the world's best computer engineers and programmers. In 1970s, PARC was the mecca for innovation in computing. In 1979, Steve Jobs asked Xerox to let him tour PARC, and in return, he would allow Xerox to buy 100,000 shares of Apple for $1 million. After much discussion, Xerox agreed. Among other notable achievements, the PARC team had developed a prototype of their experimental Alto workstation. The Alto embodied a number of most advanced ideas in computing, including graphical user interfaces, the mouse, bitmap displays, windows, icons, and local area networks. Legend has it that when Jobs was shown the working Alto prototype with all its innovative capabilities, he was very excited and started jumping around the room, shouting, "Why aren't you doing anything with this? This is the greatest thing, this is revolutionary." Jobs raced back to Apple and told his engineers to change the course of the personal computers under development and copy the Alto's advanced capabilities he had just been shown at PARC. He wanted menus, he wanted windows, he wanted a mouse. The result was the Lisa, introduced by Apple in 1980. In 1981, Xerox announced the Star workstation, the successor to Alto, called the Xerox 8010 Star. It was expensive, slow, and underpowered. It was the first commercial system to incorporate technologies that have subsequently become the commonplace in personal computers, such as bitmap display, window-based GUI, mouse, Ethernet networking, file servers, print servers, and email. The Xerox 8010 Star, despite its technological breakthroughs, did not sell well due to its high pricing, costing $16,000 per unit. A typical Xerox Star-based office, complete with network and printers, would have costed $100,000. It was not commercial success, and eventually Xerox withdrew altogether from the workstation market. Meanwhile, Apple followed the Lisa with the Macintosh in 1984. The Mac became one of the most successful and influential products in the history of IT. Apple beat Xerox in the marketplace. because while it took Steve Jobs only a minute to see the huge potential of the Alto capabilities to revolutionize personal computing, the Xerox team did not appreciate the enormous value of what they had created. Jobs in later years said, if Xerox had known what it had and had taken advantage of its real opportunities, it could have been as big as IBM plus Microsoft plus Xerox combined. Xerox sued Apple in the late 1980s for using their GUI technology, but the case was dismissed. On the plus side, their Apple stock came to be worth billions of dollars, so at least Xerox got the happy ending that eluded many other business fumblers throughout the history. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, like, comment and subscribe for future top 10s. And if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comment section below and I will try to get to them as fast as I can. And with that being said, thank you once again for watching and I will see you guys next time.